So I'm going to tell you a story that I guess in kind of very broad context is roughly similar to one of the things that Peter just said, but I'll say it a little bit more colloquially in that the best place to find gold in the world is where there's gold. So we at Osprey are focused on rediscovering some of Nova Scotia's past historic gold mines. I seem to be having, there we go. Forward-looking statements, this is exploration at the end of the day, so choose wisely, and just some footnotes on our resource estimate. We'll start it off, some of you probably were here at the last MIF where I was speaking as well, so we'll start it off with a little bit of an update and a little bit of an overview for those of you that weren't here. We trade on the venture under OS, currently at about 30 cents for a market cap of roughly 8 million, with about 26 million out and 4 million warrants at 40 cents. What do we have? We have 4 assets, the main one of which is Goldenville, which was Nova Scotia's largest historic producer, which produced over 200,000 ounces at the better part of 12 grams from about 1863 to 1942. Since the last MIF in January there, we have redone the resource estimate at Goldenville. Previously, the resource was a historic one from 2006. So now we have 2.8 million tons at about 5 grams for 447,000 ounces uncapped. The structure remains open along strike and at depth, and then as I mentioned, we have 3 other earlier stage projects with no resources, but all with a past history of high-grade historic production. Who are Osprey Gold? My name, as I said, is Cooper Quinn. So my history is gold exploration around the world, everywhere from Greenland to less exotic locations. So my background in trade and training is geology and exploration. Jeff Wilson brings an institutional finance and investment to our team. He's got a good network of institutional contacts and has raised a good chunk of money in the mining and exploration business for about 20 years. And then he's been crucially part of several takeouts of junior companies by mid-tier mining companies. My involvement in Osprey Gold stems from my involvement in a company Peter also mentioned, Underworld Resources, where I was part of the team that took that project through to 1.6 million ounces and sold it to Kinross Gold. Adrian was president and CEO of Kinross. Greg Beischer, another geologist who is at the helm of Millrock Resources, a project generator that's been around for over 10 years at this point, doing quite well. And then to get that real boots on the ground experience in Nova Scotia, we have Perry McKinnon, one of our advisors and geologists out there, who's been working all over North America, but keeps coming back to his homeland in Nova Scotia, where he knows there's gold, he knows there's potential, and has been working in Nova Scotia for over 30 years. So, if you saw Stephen talk earlier about Atlantic Gold, I could probably skip this slide, but for those of you that weren't here, as I mentioned, Nova Scotia has an extensive history of historic gold production. So let's go look at this as a district and the potential for this to be an underexplored area in recent times with modern exploration methods. Excellent access and infrastructure all across the province, roads to all of our projects, residential power to some of them, and politically stable with a government that's been good for permitting, and local communities and First Nations have been very supportive. So just a great geopolitical region, and has the metal, jump the gun on that one, extensive metals endowment in the process. All of the dots on this map there are historic producers of some measure, and by and large all of them stopped producing in and around 1942. We have the option to earn 100% in all 4 of these properties through payments of $1 million over the next 3 years, the first payment of which of $150,000 we've already made. And the 4 yellow dots on this map, which you may or may not be able to see, you can fairly well up there, are Atlantic Gold's Moose River Consolidated project. So Goldenville, which we will zoom in on a little bit there, which is the largest red square on the upper right. As I mentioned, it's the most advanced project in our portfolio. It has the highest recorded production of any historic project in Nova Scotia, and it was been explored intermittently from 1960s to 2014. It is in the same rock formation in the Maguma terrain and in the Goldenville formation as much of Atlantic Gold's Moose River Consolidated Project. And if you can, on that map there, what that is a map from 1908 of veins at surface. So mineralization at the project starts at surface. Our resource estimate from March 15th of this year has two components. There's an underground component and a near-surface component. The near-surface component comprises roughly 200,000 ounces at about 5 grams, and the underground component, below about 150 meters, is about 244,000 ounces at 4.8 grams. So two components of the resource there, and then as I mentioned, it is open at depth and along strike for both of these components. Geology, structurally controlled slate belt hosted gold. Our resource currently comprises mostly vein hosted mineralization. We hope to incorporate some of the disseminated mineralization within the slates and argillites into the resource in the future. Most of the historic drilling that we have on the project does not have assay data in between the veins, as through the grade just was not significant enough for an underground operation. But if we look at reimagining these things and rediscovering these things as open pits, we could potentially add significant ounces through those argillites. Whoa, easy. So a little bit of just the Goldenville project itself. There's our claim block. The anticline trends roughly east-west for the main structure. The town of Sherbrooke there, to use Peter's analogy again, I feel like half of my presentation is just him. But I can wake up in the morning in Sherbrooke, go grab a coffee next door, hop in the truck, drive down the road, and be on site. And that's huge from an exploration perspective and from an infrastructure perspective. So strike length of the total claim block there is about 10 kilometers. Our resource now is currently focused around that large star at Goldenville. And I'd like to point out the structure continues underneath some glacial till and some glacial cover there over to Mitchell Lake, where there's 2 drill holes drilled in 1997, one of which came back with 1.3 grams over just over 20 meters, starting at about 50 meters depth. So a pretty interesting result in line with some of the other things Atlantic is coming up with in their exploration projects, and so we'll be following up over at Mitchell Lake this summer as well. This thing is just nobody's friend, is it? Patient. Because we don't have a ton of time, I'll just touch briefly on one of our other 3 projects. Lower Seal Harbour is interesting right now because A, it's a known host to the disseminated mineralization that's so key to the modern success in the district here, and it's directly adjacent to Oryx Exploration's Goldboro project, which is most of the way through a merger with Anaconda Mining. So they're kind of midway through there, and Anaconda is a small gold producer in Newfoundland. There we go. So going forward, what to look for. Last time I stood up here, I told you we were going to update that resource in the block model with some near-surface different grades in mind. We've done that. We've increased that resource, and then in progress now, we are in the splitting and finalizing assays on some 2014 core from a prior operator that was never logged or sampled, and doing some evaluation for Lower Seal Harbour, Miller Lake, and Gold Lake to prep for our exploration programs there, as well as getting our permitting and drill program ready for our summer exploration at Goldenville. In 27 seconds. So I think we'll hand it back to Jay here.